Hi, if you're watching this, you probably go to Yale and you probably want to apply for a fellowship. So this video is going to be split into three parts. The application timeline that I might recommend, fellowships I've applied to and gotten into, and general advice on finding a topic to research, letters of rec, / writing essays. Disclaimer, these are things that worked for me. They might not work for you, but I just wanted to share my experience because I remember when I was applying to fellowships, I felt really lost. So I made this timeline that gives you a good sense of if you're applying for a summer fellowship, when things are due and whatnot. So if you're applying to a summer fellowship, most deadlines will fall in February to March. This means you should be thinking about what fellowships you want to apply to in November, December, and starting some drafts. I know this cuts into your winter break, so if you want to still enjoy your winter break, start early enough so you're not stressed. Even giving it a quick glance in October wouldn't hurt. When you come back from winter break, get working on your essays in earnest. You can also make an appointment with the writing tutors at Yale. You can sign up for sessions where you're mentored by undergrad, graduate, or professors. When I signed up to look through my light fellowship application, my tutor was actually a professor in the law school. They will ask you for a sample of the writing before you meet, so the time you have together will be meaningful. So yeah, just to go over this timeline, I recommend in October, you look through essay prompts, begin thinking about what you want to research and or write about. And then in November, most fellowships open if you're applying for the summer. So write at least a first draft of essays and make an appointment with writing tutors. In December, January, I would say ask for a letter of rec, or if you need multiple, ask for multiple from various professors, and don't expect professors to respond during winter break. So your 4 weeks of advance that I recommend does not include winter break. So budget that into also like you're taking finals and all that kind of thing. And so just make sure that you and your professor can be on the same page. Yeah. And I also know you probably didn't make that appointment with a writing tutor because I am also a chronic procrastinator. So do that now. And then I would say in December, January, it's a good time to ask friends or a professor or a TA that you really like to read your essays and give you comments. And then in February and March, these are most of the due dates. I've also found historically it's nice to send a follow-up email with your professors or whoever's writing your letter of rec, just to say like, oh, it's due at the end of the week. I just wanted to ask about the state of the letter, because on the application side, in the Yale portal, you can see when the professors submit their letters of rec, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because you send a formal request in the portal and then you can see like 2 little progress bars. Now we're jumping into the fellowships that I have applied to and gotten into. So I applied to the Light Fellowship in my freshman year and I was taking Japanese. And for some context, the Light Fellowship funds East Asian language study, so Japanese, Chinese, Korean. And I was taking Japanese at the time, L1, L2, and then you're eligible. You have to take 2 semesters of language study at Yale to be eligible for study abroad. So that's what I did. And so something that confused me when I was looking through the Light Fellowship is if I apply to the Light Fellowship, does that mean I get it, does that mean I can study abroad automatically? No. Okay, so this is the way that I like to visualize it. The Light Fellowship is your money pool, and it's your contact with Yale, and you have to attend an info session to be eligible. And there's like a whole bunch of Zoom timelines, and they record attendance, so make sure you attend. And then the approved program is a separate application, separate portal that's not necessarily Yale affiliated. And this is the actual curriculum, your contact for lodging, logistics abroad, etc. And I applied to CET Japan and KCGS. And that summer was the summer of 2021. It ended up being virtual. But going into the process, they were like, oh, it's going to be in person. But then it wasn't. But I think like now if you apply, you won't really have problems like this, hopefully. I will link all of the websites I show in this video, but this is the Richard U. Light Fellowship website where it tells you all of the available info sessions that you have to attend for whatever cycle you're applying to. And you can also study abroad for more than just a summer. So you can do a semester, a whole year, but I think that constitutes as a gap year. So you might have to check on that. I am recording this page just so that you can see where you can navigate to see the approved programs. And then you can toggle to each approved program and see what's special about it. And basically, this particular program, CET Japan, requires 2 letters of rec, technically, one from a non-language and one from a language professor. But it will accept the language evaluation that your language teacher submits through the Light Fellowship. So when asking for teachers for a letter of rec, you need one that is not coming from a language teacher. And then the second one, you just need to talk to your language teacher like, hey, I'm applying to the Light Fellowship. I was wondering if you'd be willing to write my language evaluation, and then you're good to go. The second fellowship that I applied to and received was the Robert C. Bates Summer Research Fellowship. And when submitting my essays for this fellowship, I was given the option to select for any other fellowships my research might be eligible for. Robert C. Bates funds, I think, general undergrad research, and so it can be anything under the sun. But there are fellowships that are more specific, like only social science, or this is for public good. So there's all these different pools that you can also be eligible for. So because I was interested in wheelchair accessibility in Chinese communities, I was able to select some fellowships based around social sciences and public services. So for these additional fellowships, I did not have to open a separate application or ask for more letters of recommendation. It was, when I was about to submit, I was given like a list of other fellowships, and it said, if your topic is pertinent to any of these categories, just check the box. So that's a neat thing. So like when I look at my fellowship application portal, it looks like I applied to so many, but actually I wrote a formal application for the Robert C. Bates, and then I happened to apply to all these other ones. So then it was sent to them too. So then after I submitted in February/March, I received an email to interview at the end of March with the Yale College Public Service Research Grant, Research for a Better World. And so it was over Zoom. It was around 15 minutes, and a bunch of people. I don't really know I don't know what their titles were or anything, but it was just like asking about how I see my research impacting the world beyond just this little bubble of research, and how I aim to, address problems as they arise, and what problems do I see coming out of it. The third fellowship that I've applied to and gotten in is the Harvey Geiger Fellowship in Architecture. So this fellowship is exclusive to juniors in the architecture major. I emailed the senior administrative assistant of the Yale School of Architecture to see if I could read past applications of people who have received the Geiger so I could understand the scope that people proposed and have an idea of expected budgets before doing my own research. And also have an idea of, you say it's like for travel research, how much are you allowed to travel, where, and what exactly are you, what encompasses architectural research. And so by looking at those past applications, I was able to get a better idea. And then just as a note, the Geiger is completely separate from the Bates. So I had to open another application in the Yale Fellowships portal and ask for a different letter of recommendation. The content of my research was the same. I was still talking about wheelchair accessibility in Chinese communities. But yeah, so the fellowships at Yale talk, and eventually I received a combination of 7,500 from the Bates and the Geiger to support the same proposal. Moving on to advice. Thinking of a research topic. Think of something you're interested in. This may sound super obvious, but I think sometimes we're tempted to lean into a topic because it seems more academic or has wider appeal. In reality, though, I think it's much more valuable to lean into whatever interests you. You bring to the table and bring more diversity to existing literature. And like the whole point when you're writing your essay is, why is this unique? Why has this never been done before? Why is it important that you do it? So yeah, whatever niche thing that you are interested in, they probably would like to read, rather than something that seems relatively generic and has already been explored. Next, that's related to thinking of a research topic is talking with trusted people in your life. I originally started with two main ideas: accessibility and Chinatowns and like diasporic architecture. I talked with my friends, both who study architecture and study other subjects, one of my favorite TAs, my architectural history professor, both who I ended up asking for letters of rec, the director of undergrad studies, like the DUS of architecture, and a professor who specializes in accessible architecture. And through all these conversations, I was able to narrow my focus to wheelchair accessibility in Chinese communities, with a special interest in adaptive reuse. And my point is, your idea is not going to develop without discussing with other people. I think when I went into thinking that I wanted to do research, I was like, I'm interested in accessibility, but that's such a broad umbrella, and that can encompass many things. And I think like I was encouraged by people who were wiser than me to let go of this huge umbrella and really zoom in on something that I cared about. And so I ended up zooming in on wheelchair accessibility. And then finally, think of something that could turn into a senior project or thesis. While your senior project or thesis doesn't have to be bound by the fact that you did this research, your journey could unearth an even more interesting point for you to follow. Write with the thought that this topic could develop further, but also be open to new ideas as they come up. Going into this, I was and I still am very interested in wheelchair accessibility and how, Chinese perspectives might shape the architecture. But just being in Hong Kong and Singapore, which are super walkable and super culturally diverse, I realized maybe I'm interested in like the subway system and how they organize signage and these things that are tangentially related to what I was originally coming here for. But these things can always develop. And then now I'm talking to my DUS about developing a project further. So we'll see what happens, because technically design track architecture majors don't have to write a thesis. So it would just be an independent project on my part, and then I would have a final architecture project. So we'll see about that, but I'm just saying your ideas can change, and that's okay. In terms of letters of recommendation, give your professors a heads up. I generally like to ask in person about a month in advance and follow up with emails as necessary. Sometimes professors will ask you for a resume and or relevant experience to talk about in your letter. And as I said, giving your professor 4 to 6 weeks in advance does not include winter break time. That time is dud. So calculate with winter break in mind if you're applying for a summer fellowship. Yeah. Make sure it's a professor who actually knows you to some degree and knows how you operate and who you are as a person. I know if you're watching this video, you probably needed to apply to university, so this might be redundant advice, but it's still super important. And then finally, for essay structure, you're most likely going to have one main essay asking why this fellowship. So I used this structure, which also corresponds to the requests of the Bates and the Geiger application. So first part, it doesn't have to be organized in a paragraph by paragraph format, but I think this is just a good roadmap. So the first part is your research topic introduction, and then why this topic. Like I mentioned briefly before, like why does this need to be introduced into the existing literature, because it doesn't exist yet. Deliverables for your research. So when I was writing my applications, I said my deliverables would be photographs, drawings, and written material. And then At the end of the Bates and the Geiger, they also have you submit a report, submit documents proving that you left the country and came back kind of thing, and like a photograph from your experience. Yeah. And so honestly, those deliverables are really lax, but I think it's also important to think about what you want to get out of the research, even if it's not required by the university. And then the last section is how your research will have impact beyond this experience. Maybe that's further graduate work, senior thesis, work inspiration, etc. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any other questions in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them.